Show for the Spanish Grand Prix. Another exciting qualifying back-to-back weeks here. This is John Massengale, and I am joined by Mr. Bob Varsha and former Haas F1 team manager Dave O'Neill. Jonathan Green is doing some Trans Am, and he's not going to be able to join us today. But gentlemen, was another mayhem. Yes, he's causing mayhem. That was another exciting qualifying. And Mr. Varsha, you're over in Jakarta for the Formula E. Well, thank you for staying up late.
Yeah, thanks. It's going to be an early morning too to catch my flight towards home. But it's been an interesting couple of weeks combined with my voyage to Monaco. So it's yeah, I'm ready to be home.
I bet so. Hey, Dave O'Neill, what do you think? Max Verstappen with another dominating performance, but another exciting qualifying, right?
Yeah, well, we had a little bit of weather that kind of added to the mix. And if we look at the times from last year, from Leclerc's pole, I think they're 1.2 quicker this year, which is quite impressive with the track drying out, and obviously a little bit technical as well. If you were on the curbs with the water, it was catching a lot of people out at the beginning in Q1. So very interesting. I mean, Max is on a different planet as the last couple of races have showed, and he's kind of beating his teammate up a little bit as well. You know, the pressure is certainly pouring on Sergio, unfortunately, but I'm sure he'll get it together. He has the experience, but Aston's not quite where we thought they would be. I think Alonso damaged his car when he went off in Q1, so they had to repair it and do some quick fixes. And then, of course, quite interestingly, the two Mercedes banged into each other. Obviously, I don't think it was done on purpose. I just think that George was setting himself up for his lap. Hamilton came down the outside, and also Leclerc was on the right. So, you know, not what you want as teammates, but quite interestingly as well, you can still see there's quite a bit of porpoising going on down that main straight where they just start the braking. You can see the big black line, which is almost like a spotted line. And speaking to someone I know at Aston, they said the porpoising still exists. They've just managed to get hold of it a little bit better than some of the other teams. And again, you know, Red Bull obviously as well. And then, you know, the rest of it was quite interesting. The Haas did quite well. You know, they medium high speed circuit. They seem to bring a decent package this weekend. But yeah, very, very interesting. And, you know, I thought more weather was coming in, but it managed to stay away. Yeah,
well, you're right, man. There is a ton going on here, and yeah, good job by Nico Hulkenberg and the Haas team getting it all set up. But yeah, there's been some interesting things. That the pressure on Sergio Perez and it not making Q2 again with another mistake, and that crash essentially, that crash essentially between the two Mercedes. I mean, that was surprising, but I think you're right. I think George just wasn't looking in his mirrors. I think he just didn't see Hamilton coming around him.
Yeah, it's as Dave can attest, we should have seen major upgrades to these cars 2 races ago at Imola. Then Imola gets canceled because of the flooding. Monaco is a unicorn among street tracks, so nobody's going to introduce their big updates there. So this track that they know so well from so many years of testing here in Barcelona, suddenly all of those update packages show up. And I think that maybe contributed a bit to what we saw. I mean, it's hard for me to figure out this final top 10 in Q3. But I guess the overriding point, as Dave just mentioned, is that Max Verstappen is just on another planet. He is just so quick, leading every session, just wins comfortably. He just, you're not going to get any closer than X. So have fun back there, because I'm going to be out front and I'm going to take every session and every point and every victory. But I think we are seeing the arrival of those update packages that make teams like McLaren and Alpine and so on, run a lot better. And I think that's potentially good news. Yeah, Max is going to run off and hide, but you're going to see a great battle in the midfield. And hopefully it'll include Hülkenberg with Haas and what have you. The whole Alonso situation is kind of a shame right there in front of his countrymen. But as Dave pointed out, you go off and you hurt the car, and you're gonna pay for it, and he did.
Yeah, I saw that silver tape, and I want to ask you about that tape, Dave. What you think it might is? It's probably some. It's probably not your hardware store duct tape, but it kind of looked like that's some silver tape. What is that stuff, Dave? Do you know?
Well, it has a nickname, actually. Quite observant of you there, but it's called Honda tape. And it was kind of brought over by the Japanese when we had the Mugen engines in Jordan in the late 90s. It's kind of like $200 a roll type thing, but it has a fabric inside it, and it's perfect. It molds to the shape of whatever you're putting it on, so you don't have to cut it like you were if you were wrapping a car. But yeah, there you go. It's Honda tape.
Well, Chris Medland is in Barcelona, and he's grabbing some interviews for us. In fact, he's already got a couple that we can get out here. In fact, if Casey is ready, I've got. Let's hear from Logan Sargent, who did not have a great day so far. Let's hear from Logan Sargent.
Logan, looked like a tough day out there that started with FP3. So, what happened with the off at the final corner?
Yeah, it just started raining, and I just clipped the apex curb, and yeah, it sent me into a snap, which I caught, but just couldn't do anything once I got to the gravel. But yeah, grateful the team was able to turn it around. Not a good qualifying this afternoon. Tricky conditions, and then it's quite difficult. Everyone wants to push in front, knowing that we're a car that's not the quickest, and just completely compromises the outlap, and just didn't have the tire anywhere near the window starting that last lap.
Does it also knock your confidence at all when you've had a moment like an FP3 that you've got to build up to again in a very short qualifying session?
I went for it. I mean, it is, crashes happen. It is what it is. You got to just move on from it. Yeah, I feel like from a driving standpoint, I would have been fine. It just need to have the tire in the window.
Well, you've been very successful at this track in junior categories, but the car just doesn't look all that competitive here this weekend. So what can you realistically target tomorrow?
Well, normally, I'm not sure, honestly. I think, we struggled a little bit in the long runs on Friday, and honestly, after today, just need a reset and just try to run my own race tomorrow, see what we can do, just look after my tires, and that's all we can do.
Thank you, mate.
Dave O'Neill, yeah, he sounds a little downbeat, doesn't he? But I want to get Dave O'Neill's take on this. I want to get Dave's take, because Dave, you are a Gunther Steiner disciple. I want you to channel your Gunther unfiltered, and what would you be telling Logan Sargent right now?
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. He doesn't know whether he's coming or going, that those sort of things, either make you or break you in normal life as well. So I think that he's got a battle on his hands. He needs someone to put an arm around him and say, look, these days come and go. You need to recover. Formula One's all about recovery. As soon as you can get over it, you must. He made a move. He made a mistake. It didn't stick, and he paid the consequences. But if you don't make those moves, you can't move forward. So those kind of words would probably come from Gunther. And if you did it again, I'm sure he'd have something different to say. But he probably needs the encouragement to move forward. There has been a gap as well. I know it's not an excuse. But with Imola being pulled, there isn't a load of testing people can go and do and keep their hand in. You can drive a sim. You went to Monaco, and that was an anomaly, really. So you're back into this fast circuit, which is pretty technical to put all the corners together. There's only 14 corners, but all of them have to be half decent for you to stick a lap together. And yeah, that's pretty much what he's got to go and do. He's got to recover, and he's a big boy, so he's on the stage with 20 others. He's got to get over it and get on with it.
Yeah,
it sounds like he's been reading some of the media speculation about his future and how Mick Schumacher's waiting in the wings, and Mercedes, who supplies the drivetrains for the Williams team, wants him in there instead of Logan Sargent, and he's let it get to him. It sounds like. I mean, he was so positive through his first half dozen races in Formula One. I mean, he was making progress. He was right there on the cusp of Q1 to Q2, but now all of a sudden it's like he's telling everybody, well, I'm just going to run my race, and if that means my career is over, so be it. Which I don't think is healthy for him. Well, let me ask you this, Dave. If he says he didn't have his tires up in the operating window, if a driver comes on the radio and says, these tires aren't ready yet, should I do another lap? I mean, is that something the team is likely to let him do, or at least commiserate with him? Or do they just say, okay, you're out there, do what you want? How do you handle a situation like that when he says, the plan isn't working, how do I change it on the fly?
Yeah, very good question. I think there's kind of three sectors you can dial into that. Obviously, the clock's ticking, and the program is that you've got to go out and do the lap and then come back in. And of course, you are also trying to save these tyres for tomorrow. And just a side note, with Verstappen, he only went half a second quicker in the final lap because he saved the tyres for the start. And again, they're thinking like that. So what would have probably happened in the scenario for Sargent is that typically if it starts raining or the track's damp, it's a driver decision whether you come in to change tyres. You can give them as much information as you can, but he didn't. When he goes out, the tyres would have been at 120 degrees. He would have left the pit lane, or left the garage, sorry. And if he sat at the pit lane, the temperature would have dropped. And then, of course, if he was then looking for a clear lap, the temperature would have dropped again. So in his lack of experience, he would have struggled to foresee how much temperature he was losing from the tyres in stopping it outside the garage, not getting temperature into them. And it's not just, moving the car around on the circuit, it's about applying the brakes. The heat from the brakes generates heat into the wheel. And then, of course, it warms the air temperature up inside the carcass. And then, of course, from that, it migrates to the inside of the tread. And then the outside of the tread generates its heat from the traction on the surface. So to answer your question, Bob, they probably would have said, it's probably over. There's no chance mathematically you can get the temperature into the tyres, so you might as well come in,
Yeah. There's a bigger picture here, but I know John wants to get to a break. So let's return to this subject, if I can so suggest.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get a quick break in. You're listening to Speed City F1. Back after these messages. All right, so we're live on YouTube. Yeah, Andy P on YouTube says someone needs to tell Logan to take the weight of the world off his shoulders. That did not sound good. It really, yeah, he picked up on exactly what you did, Bob.
Yeah, it's and we can talk about this further, but for all you fans out there on YouTube, the point I wanted to get to is there's a larger picture here. Pirelli wants to institute a tire compound and construction that allows Formula One to eliminate preheating the tires entirely. They want to get rid of the tire blankets, the preheating. I haven't seen a positive comment from a single driver. Lewis Hamilton has said he thinks they're dangerous, but this is the kind of thing that Pirelli and Formula One and the FIA are looking for as to whether or not they pull the trigger on throwing away the tire blankets for 2024.
Yeah, no doubt. And Dave, when we come back, I want to dig into this because I want to get your take on it too. And because I was finding it fascinating. You're talking about the actual tire temperatures coming out of the blankets at 120 degrees. And I want to see what you think of all that when we come back. I'm just looking at got some new folks. Paul Veltum on YouTube.
Hey, Paulie.
Do you know?
Paulie's my producer. I've done some race calling with the Champ Car series, the old Chump Car series. Paulie Veltum is the producer. Nice to hear from you, Paulie. Yeah.
TW's there. He's always there. Kevin Kelly's there. He's like the furniture. He's always here. Let's see. Yeah, TW's in Thailand. So I don't know what time he's always watching, just like you, Bobby.
He's on Bob's time.
Yeah. Here we go.
Hello to everyone, this is Gunther Steiner, this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60 as the official cybersecurity partner of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. CrowdStrike protects against cyber threats so the team can focus on what matters, their next win. The revolutionary cloud-native unified CrowdStrike Falcon platform harnesses the speed and power of the cloud to protect and defend organizations of all sizes against increasingly complex threats, stopping breaches before they happen. Because on and off the track, the stakes couldn't be higher. A split second can make the difference between victory and defeat. When every second counts, protection shouldn't slow you down. It should fuel your momentum. CrowdStrike, protection at every turn. To learn more and to try CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, well, we were talking about Logan Sargent and his really downtrodden sounding comments there. And we touched on it during the break on YouTube, but Bob, you want to take off on that a little bit, and then I want to get Dave's comments too.
Well, I just brought up the fact that the folks from Pirelli are introducing or testing a new tire in real-time situations on the track this weekend to try to develop a technology, and they think they've got it down, that will allow them to eliminate preheating of the tires in tire blankets in the garages, which will save time and money and so on and so forth. The FIA apparently really wants to do this in 2024, which is actually a year or two ahead of when it was originally proposed, but they think they've got it down now. Not a lot of the drivers agree with it. Hamilton says they're dangerous tires, but they're out there, and there's going to be a big test after this race weekend with Ferrari and Mercedes before they pull the trigger on the final decision as to whether or not Pirelli is going to go ahead and, for the first time in God knows how long, eliminate preheating of the tires. And I think what we saw today, when after hearing Logan Sargent say that a lack of tire preparation is what hampered his efforts today, and I'm sure he's not the only guy in the pit lane saying that. You know, this is going to be a real question and a really controversial one for the next couple of months.
Dave, what do you think about this? Yeah, I was fascinated about what you were just saying about the tire temperatures, reaching 120. I'm assuming you're talking Celsius there, and coming out of the pit garage.
Yeah, coming out of the bags.
Yeah,
I think going back to the tire that they think will do the job. I think there was a race in sports cars a couple of weeks ago where they tried them without the blankets or the tire ovens, and there was a couple of big accidents. So then they implemented, it must have been Spa actually, then they implemented the heating back again. But we're talking about Formula One. Now, one of the challenges you have is the temperatures, the ambient temperatures across the world for different Grand Prix. So you can go to Silverstone, for argument's sake. It will be 10 degrees in the morning, maybe get to 18. And then you go to, some of the Far East countries where you have a 50-degree spread in temperature. And these are the bits were virtually impossible to simulate unless you test there. So I think the challenge, sure, someone's going to conquer it, but the challenge is getting this range of temperatures, and then not only that, having the 3 different compounds to have that range of temperatures to work in and be safe on. And yes, anyone can drive, and I'm sure you get drivers who'll say it will be fine, but you have the ambient temperature, you have the track temperature, and then you have the temperature that the working range that the rubber works in, and those are the kind of factors. And there isn't an F1 test car or a mule. It's only the winter testing that the teams are allowed to do. And Pirelli tried to buy an old car and go testing around the world, but again, it wasn't representative of what the current car was. It was 4 years old, didn't have the aero the car has on it. And look at what we've done in Barcelona. We're 1.2 seconds quicker than last year with virtually the same looking car. The other challenges as well, which is the 13-inch wheel to the 18-inch wheel, you could generate a lot more heat with the 13-inch because you had the bigger sidewall. So if you move the car around, you generate more heat in the tyre. Now, it's almost a trick to get these tyres to move because the spring is in the car now, not in the tyre. So, these are the kind of areas that you'd have to look at. And yes, it's all great, throwing tyre blankets away and saving the planet, which we all agree with. But it's only a very small amount of what it is when it comes to the safety as well. But I think, the ambient temperatures are the biggest challenge from country to country. So.
Well, this is going to be fascinating to watch, but we got Chris Medland live in Barcelona. But Chris, before we go to you, we haven't really run down the whole qualifying, and the order is really fascinating because we obviously had talked about Max Verstappen on pole, but followed by Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris in third, Pierre Gasly, Lewis Hamilton in fifth, Lance Stroll in sixth, Esteban Ocon, Nico Hulkenberg in the Haas down in eighth, looking good. Fernando Alonso with his Honda tape on his car down in ninth. Oscar Piastri, Sergio Perez, who didn't make Q3, in 11th. George Russell, Zhou Guanyu, Nick De Vries, Yuki Tsunoda 15th. Valtteri Bottas, Kevin Magnussen, Albon Leclerc, and Logan Sargent. But Chris Medland, thank you for sending those interviews. We're going to get to all those. We've played Logan Sargent, but what's going on out there right now?
Yeah, well, it was funny we were talking about tires just then with Dave because I am thanking Pirelli again for some Wi-Fi because, there's no way to get signal here at this circuit this weekend. So I'm having to stay in one place to be on air. It's a fascinating paddock actually right now because there's not that many happy people. There's a lot of like split teams. McLaren are pretty happy, but then Piastri was looking quicker than 10th showed. I think Haas are going to be very happy with their lot, and I'm going to try and grab Nico Hulkenberg when he walks by. I'm also going to hopefully get Zach Brown before the show's out. But you mentioned Pierre Gasly. I am next to Alpine, and Gasly has got 2 trips to the stewards for impeding. One for impeding Sainz in Q1, one for impeding Verstappen in Q2. I believe it's Q2, it might have even been Q1. And both of them look like penalties. I'm certain he's going to get a penalty for at least one of the 2, which would be 3 places. So it might not be Gasly in 4th. So that may well change. And I'll shout if I see. Well, actually, we won't see that while we're on air because he's not going till gone 6 o'clock. The 2 Mercedes drivers as well for colliding, they have to go to the stewards. And that felt like a missed opportunity, didn't it? With the way that played out, because they looked quick, but then damage to Hamilton's car, Russell dropping out in Q2, neither car on the front 2 rows. It's remarkable. But while I'm here, I'm going to try and time this properly. If I get this right, we have Mr. Zach Brown heading our way, and I will tell him that we're live on air. But I've got to make him stop where I am. This is actually, it's a terrible timing. So I've got Nico Hulkenberg on one side, Zach Brown on the other. And Nico is talking to other people while he walks, though I might try and chase him a bit later. But I'm going to try and annoy Zach. And I have to explain to Zach right now that I've got to stay by Pirelli to get Wi-Fi to be live on the air. So we can't move, I'm afraid. Right. I do have your McLaren Wi-Fi, but it won't connect while we move. So, Zach, Lando, P3, where did that come from?
That was a big lap. But, he was quick all session, as was Oscar. He had a little mistake there in Sector 3. Otherwise, I think he would have been pretty close to Lando. So, 2 cars in the Q3 and one pretty high up. Pleased with that.
It must be almost frustrating because that's a great step forward, great performance. But then, as we said, like Oscar looked quick the whole way through, and he's not made many mistakes this season. So not to have them both right up there must be a bit bittersweet.
Well, I'll take it, but I think there was a little bit more in him. But he's doing such a fantastic job. If the mistakes he's making as a rookie is a sector every once in a while, I'll take it.
And that car looks very, very quick here. obviously in tricky conditions. But what can it do in race trim tomorrow? Was this a case of just getting the most out of it over one lap, or do you think you can stay up there?
I think we can stay up there. I think it's not going to be easy. I think it'll be a little bit weather dependent. Our car likes these conditions, so I'll be praying for rain tonight or something similar to these conditions.
Now, we've mainly talked about Aston Martin, Mercedes, Ferrari, and sometimes Alpine as like a group behind Red Bull. Can you get in there? Are these signs coming that the car's improving and you can get into that mix for the rest of this season?
Oh, it's a master plan. Whether we can get in there or not, well, time will tell. But yeah, I'm really happy with all the progress the team's making. I think what Andrea Stella's done and restructured the team, and everyone's working really hard. So it feels like it's starting to pay off, but a long way to go.
That was Mark Webber, by the way, for everybody who was whooping in the background. He's obviously not too disappointed with Q3 for Oscar. But just finally, Zach, how tired are you? Because you've come from the 500, which must have been a roller coaster of emotions as well, straight here to another Grand Prix.
I'm good. I'm used to it. More racetracks, the better. I got a Jack Daniels waiting for me now.
Oh, a sponsor plug to end the interview. Nicely done. Thank you, Zach.
Cheers.
There we go. Yeah, Zach, that was a new sponsor announcement this week, I think, with Jack Daniels branded whiskey bottles. So he managed to get that. That's the proper marketing ploy, isn't it, from Zach Brown there? He could talk about his team doing well today and a sponsor plug. So, yeah, there are other whiskeys available.
That's the master of marketing, Zach Brown, dropping the sponsor name out there. That's fantastic. Well, yeah, Chris, you were talking about Mercedes. You said it's a missed opportunity, but what a mess. The fact that they literally, crashed and caused damage to the car in qualifying. I mean, that was crazy.
Yeah, I here in this paddock is a little bit crazy as well because of the Spanish interest in obviously both Sainz and Alonso. So waiting for the drivers as qualifying was going on, I was hiding behind the Sky Pad. So anyone who watches the TV coverage will see Anthony Davidson kind of showing different incidents happening. And he and I had a chat just amongst the chaos. And he said it was very clear from the footage he had that George had no idea Lewis was coming with such a run and was having to go for his second lap and was just getting the slipstream and the tow from the Ferrari. So once he'd kind of taken it, he went to move back and there was Lewis with this heck of a run out the final corner. So he thinks just a huge misunderstanding that, essentially there's not enough time there for a warning to come from the engineer or anything like that. And yeah, I'm sure the drivers won't be happy because of the mess between the two, but sometimes you do get them, don't you, when they're just the same piece of tarmac at the same time. Yeah, and there's not a lot you can do because otherwise one of them had to back out and give up their lap.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it just reminded me of what was it, lap one a few years ago when when Nico Rosberg and Hamilton came together. But I know it wasn't that severe, but it was just surprising. Just caught me off guard. But hey, guys, we got to sneak in a quick break, and when we come back, we've got Chris caught up with Frederick Vasseur. So stay tuned. You're listening to Speed City F1. Back after these messages. Chris, I know you're tethered to the Pirelli thing. Whatever you want to do, buddy. If you want to go try to get some more, or
are we 15 more minutes in the show, or are we going beyond that?
Yeah, we're 15 minutes more.
Okay, well, I will see if I can grab maybe one more interview, but I'll give it 2 or 3 minutes. And if I fail, I'll come back and tether just to be on for the final 10, just to chat. Because, yeah, we've got Albon was funny. You've probably done a good job at splitting those two up, but he explains the conditions he needs to win. And he said, he said if it's rain, then dry, then rain, then dry, and then maybe some snow, that's what he wants tomorrow. And I said, where will you finish? And he's like, well, P1. So, yeah, his was good, talking about how competitive it is, which I guess the grid shows, doesn't it? There's no real 2x2 anywhere.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
we'll get both of those in.
Needs to go talk to his teammate and buck him up a little bit.
Yeah, like
this is a sport.
This one.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I wish we had more time because of the a late start after qualifying. It gives us a 45-minute show. It's a little. I wanted some more here. So
is Chris still there?
I am indeed. Yep.
Chris, I think what would be interesting is if you can get hold of Mario for the tyre strategy tomorrow, with what's playing out, who's got what left, and those numbers normally.
Yeah, I'm in the perfect spot for him if he does appear, because I'm outside Pirelli, but I'm not sure if he will appear in the next 15, because I think he might be. They're normally in their own debrief now, looking at who's done what. But if I don't get him on air, I'll either pre-record him for the show tomorrow or just grab him in our pre-race show and get him to explain what's looking likely. Because normally I interview him about 6:30, which is in 45 minutes for the F1 strategy guide, and he's only not got the numbers then either.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. And Chris Medland is out in Barcelona, and he got a couple of interviews. And I said we were going to hear from Frederick Vasseur, but before we do that, we are going to hear from Alexander Albon, because I want to get that in beforehand based on what Chris said, Albon said. So let's hear from Alexander Albon.
Alex, this looked like a tricky weekend for Williams anyway, but you seemed a bit disappointed at the end of Q1 there, that you maybe weren't too happy with your driving, with the pace. What was it?
No, just I love them moments in quali where there can be rain and drying track, and it feels like in them moments you can see a lot of drivers making mistakes. You can put a bit more risk in it, get rewarded for it, you know what I mean? So they're great, and we needed that this weekend because we have been the 10th quickest car the whole time. So you get excited for them kind of moments, but unfortunately I went off in turn 5. We picked up quite a lot of damage into 5, and I had to finish the rest of the lap, or the session. We tried to patch up the floor as best we could, but it definitely wasn't fresh out of the factory, let's say, heavily used. So yeah, it's frustrating because I think we were a tenth and a half off getting into Q2, and I don't know. I think damage like that can be far more than that. So in some ways it's almost like, wow, we actually almost did make it to Q2, but in other ways that the why I was frustrated was because it was like we were so close, and if we didn't have the damage, I'm sure we would have got through. So anyway, we were expecting P19 and we got P18.
Well, but as you say, we saw Charles out in Q1. We've just seen George and Checo drop out in Q2. Other big names stumbling. So you were there in the mix. But will that damage hamper you tomorrow, or is it something you think can be repaired?
Yeah, it'll be repaired for tomorrow. No problem about that. More just exactly what you said. It's opportunity when there's mixed conditions and you see everyone big names getting knocked out, and then the other side is just Norris and Piastri up in the top 5. I think the whole grid in the top 10 was split by half a second, which is that's amazing. That's exciting. I mean, I don't think we would have been within that half a second, but it's nice to see. It's nice to watch.
Well, then tomorrow, what is your aim? Are you just praying for more changeable conditions to get in that mix, or can you do something if it is dry?
Yes, I want wet start, dry, then a bit more rain, then a bit more dry, and then rain again, and then maybe some snow or something else. That would be perfect.
And where do you finish with that scenario?
First.
Great stuff, thank you.
That's great. Albon has kind of come into himself, hasn't he? He seems a little more relaxed and comfortable in his skin, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's definitely relaxed. He's another one of those guys who just seems to have the right attitude about this. You know, it's a sport. Yes, I'm not the fastest guy out there, but I'm going to work with what I've got and, take what the race gives me. And yeah, I mean, that's the attitude you got to have, or this sport will just drive you crazy.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Why don't we hear the Frederick Vasseur interview that Chris Medland did just a moment ago. But before we do that, we're going to hear a message from our sponsor. Today's Speed City Saturday on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at crowdstrike.com/XM. So let's hear from Frederick Vasseur.
Row and back row.
Nice.
So let's start with the negative and move to the positive. What happened with Charles in Q1?
We don't know yet, but he was complaining a lot about the car in the left-hand corner, and we need to understand what's happened. But for sure, it's a shame when you see the outcome of the quali. But I didn't see Charles because he's to the anti-doping control, and we'll have a long discussion tonight to fix it.
Is it a sign as well of Formula One and how close it is, though, that a small problem like that can knock you out in Q1? You can't kind of recover from those issues.
Yeah, because I think it's why even Perez was not far away to be out in Q1. That if you have in the past, I think that the 2 or 3 top teams, they were able to go in Q2 with medium. That it's not true anymore because it's a matter of tenths. And if you have an issue, or if you don't put everything together, or you do a small mistake, you are out. And we had an issue today, and we are paying the price cash.
But with the other car, much more encouraging. Front row with Carlos at his home race. I mean, is that kind of what you're looking for with the updated car, or just happy with where the team executed today?
No, it was for sure. It's a good result. It's the best result of the quali so far from Carlos. At home, for sure, it's a particularly a good taste, and I'm more than pleased for him. It's also a good reward for the team because they push at home like hell to bring the upgrades and all the parts in time in Barcelona. It was quite challenging, and it's paying off today because that doesn't matter if we are speaking about tens or hundreds. It's so tight that every single update on the car is paying off. And I'm pleased for them also. Let's stay focused now on tomorrow.
I was going to say, is the big test though tomorrow having a consistent car in the race and hopefully fighting for that podium?
Yeah, for sure that it's the target, because the most important is the race, that you are not scoring points on Saturday. But at least it's one step forward with Carlos, and it's important for the team. Now let's stay focused on tomorrow, that we have still a question mark about the weather forecast, but same for everybody.
Yeah, and you're going to put on a show with Charles coming through the field?
Yeah, I'm not sure that Barcelona is the easiest track of the season to overtake, but I hope that the new layout will pay off.
We look forward to watching it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Dave O'Neill, I see you smiling after listening to Frederick Vasseur. What do you think about how he's been doing this year? We've been talking a lot about him, but we haven't got your take this year yet.
Well, he's kind of like a poet, isn't he? You know, with his accent. I enjoy it.
Expector Clouseau.
Yes. I kind of was reading into it a bit. You know, and this is only my take, of course, is, you know, Carlos did okay. I obviously still think they have all their money on Leclerc. And I was also wondering as well, you know, who's going to take over from Sainz if that is the case. But yeah, he's I'm sure he's good at motivating people. Everything he's done, he's won at, and of course this is a different challenge coming to Ferrari. But you know, if you have it in the blood, you have it in the blood to win. You know.
Yeah, you see me smiling. You say it's a different challenge coming to Ferrari, maybe the biggest challenge. But hey, Chris Medland, what's going on out there? I know you tried to get down to Haas, but they're not available.
Yeah, everyone into debrief now. As you've mentioned, actually, with this delayed finish to qualifying, it does mean that everyone's kind of squeezed a little bit. They're trying to get on to their meetings, push them all back, and trying to make the plans for tomorrow. And right now, the weather's kind of cleared up. And I think we're going to get a bit of this tomorrow as well, where can't quite tell what's going to happen in terms of whether we're going to get some heavy rain, some light rain, no rain. But it's just looking cool the whole time. And maybe it's one for Dave, really. But yeah, we're used to seeing F1 cars operate in warm temperatures, hot temperatures. And if the sun's out, it is hot here. It's good. But when it's clouding over, it's much, much cooler. And that can cause a huge change, can't it, in the way of balance of a car, the way it reacts, its performance, all just because of a few degrees of temperature. Yeah, and of course you have the wind as well. It's so finicky, the you know, the weather and the track temperatures, and especially in Barcelona, it's one of the tracks on the circuit that has the most effect from weather change. But you have the sun, you have cloud cover. You know, if you have the cloud cover, takes the sun off the circuit. And then we were talking earlier about if you go offline as well, you have all the dust offline. And of course, when the sun's not baking down on the actual track where you have the line where the cars are driving, you have all the dust and the sun's not getting to that. So as soon as you go offline, you just don't have the grip that you did online. Sounds simple, but huge effects, you know, and especially at this track. So pinpoint accuracy is what you need to put a lap together. And yeah, that's what showed today with the changing conditions. You know, people off, and also, you know, they got
taken out from water on the curbs as well, which wasn't good. And there's a little stream running down, I think, coming out of 8 or 9, which caught debris off a couple of times as well. So,
not to change the subject, but I'm sorry, John, but I wanted to ask Chris: did Gunther Steiner go to the stewards before?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, there you go. Great minds think as one.
Good question. Yes, he did. And the stewards then said they will not be making a decision about it until tomorrow morning at the earliest, or publishing a decision about it until tomorrow morning at the earliest. And the reason he had to go was because he criticized F1 stewarding as a whole, saying that, we need professional full-time stewards in this sport. It's a big, expensive, lucrative professional sport, and we don't have full-time paid stewards. So that's what he wants to see after the Nico Hülkenberg penalty in Monaco, where I kind of agree with him. Lunge on Logan Sargent, but I didn't see any contact with anyone. And the stewards say he caused the collision and needed a penalty, but there were a number of other collisions that went unpunished. So yeah, that's what Gunther went up there for. I think it's a dangerous precedent to set that the stewards have called him up there to kind of say, we don't like what you've said in the press. He's entitled to his opinion. I saw nothing derogatory. So,
and it's not like he's criticizing something they did or a specific person. He's criticizing the whole process, the whole layout of how they have these non-paid non-professionals. I think I agree. I'm going to be disappointed if they end up fining him or making him pay for that in some way.
I think, as you say, it's the system is what he said. He used the term the system, and he made a clear point yesterday that he's not picking out any single individual or anything like that. He doesn't blame anyone individually. He just thinks F1 needs to professionalize that system.
Yeah. Well, guys, we are just about out of time. Before we get done here, I just want to make sure everybody knows we've got our pre and post race shows, of course, tomorrow on SiriusXM, and of course, streaming online as well on our YouTube and Facebook channels. But everything starts tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Central for our pre-race show. 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central, and with the race in between from the BBC team, and followed by our 1 hour post-race show. And Chris Medland will be on the ground in Barcelona. And I'm not sure, Bob, you're not going to be able to make it because you're going to be on an airplane back home, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But thanks, everybody. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Dave O'Neill. Thanks for tuning in, everybody online and listening in your car and everywhere else. And we'll talk to you tomorrow morning.
Cheers.